just.
Yep, and then just go to,
Yeah,
go ahead,
got it.
got it. And then I'm wondering if,
Well, it's recording, so that's something.
yeah, so the Zoom's working. And then you can-
Probably, right? Yeah, I think you're correct.
maybe-
Oh, meeting ID number, right? There's your.
Yeah, try that.
Ah, there we go. Meeting ID number is 8. Oh, where's the numbers? Down there.
Yep, press that, and all the numbers should pop up. Over here, one sec, here.
826. 6. Join, loading. You should give a passcode next, I guess. Is that it? Meeting
There we go.
passcode. Oh, boy, I'm telling you.
Usually these are pretty. I'll walk you through it. And these two should connect once you get that meeting
Yeah.
password in. Should.
Don't forget that number. 7, 6, 5, 9, 4, 0. And what do you hit next? Where's the meeting passcode? I did that. Now what? Enter. Or this one?
Let's see, let's get rid of that. I'm trying to get it.
Oh,
Recording in progress.
that's it.
But it's recording.
I probably have to shut this one off. Right?
Oh, you don't need this?
I just not? Huh?
No, it's in there. Huh? Yeah, let me see. Well, it's okay. We have time. Turn on the video. Okay. Start the zooming from your laptop. Which also just works so that when you start. Use a tablet in the corner. Oh. Good, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
No, set up.
I think that's it. Or should I
No,
let
it's
this on?
I know. Just set it, 3 into the stuff. Turn on the owl. And then pause it, after the meeting is after the meeting. But like you can't share anything from there.
Yeah, I gotta get back on. here.
Yeah, I think I think you do that. And then I think you just set there's something.
So I'm on call for work, so if this phone rings, I have to answer it, but let's hope,
That's okay.
let's hope it doesn't, but
Oh, no.
So that to be able to, we don't have a key to lock it when we leave. Yeah, we're gonna Is there an echo?
I don't know.
Echo, echo,
I know, I guess,
echo.
I think I'm all set.
I guess we'll see, right?
I don't know. We'll find out, I
We'll
guess.
find out.
Okay.
Hey, got the owl working? Who knows?
We'll say.
I should have got my grandson here and kind of looked at
I
it.
know. Every time I set my phone down, my grandkids keep putting new pictures on my homepage.
I get a bunch of selfies from my daughter. They're terrible ones. They're terrible.
So now I've actually started to change them to something else so that when they get there, they're frustrated.
Katie, quick question.
Yeah.
Do I hit one of these buttons down here? By
Hit them
chance?
all, hit them all.
This one and this
Bill,
one?
you're on the farmer's market committee too?
Yes.
How's that going?
So that video will show you.
There's,
So go
I
ahead and
think,
try
I
that.
think my wife might
yeah,
soon join, because I think they're hurting for people now.
they are.
Yeah.
I
But
guess
one of
that's
the
it
things
then,
I'm
right?
trying to
Yeah.
do
I
is
appreciate it. Well, maybe you want to start to see.
sort of get
That's good.
people that are friends of the market who want to volunteer 1 day or 2 days or
I
little
think,
bit.
I think we're being recorded too, just so you know.
Oh,
Only because I set up.
Okay.
all
it's
the-
unofficial though, right?
It's not
We're
official.
off the record.
We're off the record, but I just want to make people aware. So, oh, I get it.
No,
It's,
Oh,
we
it's open.
propped it
Oh,
open.
let's talk to-
I have a key anyways.
You do. You're the man with the
wow,
key.
Special.
Well, where were
I
you
think
when we were
we're-
setting everything up?
I think we're set up here now.
So,
Is that right?
because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
see
oh,
it.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
it's a
going
lot of
around
work,
to
so-
everybody else.
If we could get
How do you
more
do that?
people.
I think you have to put record.
What?
I mean, there's
Record.
people that don't want to volunteer for the committee
Oh,
because
start
it's so
video?
much work, but they're
Yeah, well,
willing to
we can do
do a
it.
little here, a little there.
Right.
That way, in case we say something.
I think
no one
that's
wants to know.
Yeah.
Was this picking up after?
Yeah, I've got
I
a
mean,
key.
it's
I've
really
had it for
setting
like
up a-
6 years
and then-
because I've been.
Right, right.
Break it
conservation
down,
commission.
right? That's
Well, I
basically
came
it.
yesterday to the meeting for the Historical Society, and I saw they had a key, and I told my wife, I said, I don't want a key. I said, if something happens down there, I'm gonna be the only one they're gonna let off the hook.
The only one they're not gonna question.
Yeah. But, I've, I reached out to farms.
Yep.
Didn't get any response, so I've been doing the popping, and I'm doing much better.
Really?
Honest to goodness. I popped in and I went to Stadium Stone Farms.
Yep.
The guy was really forthcoming and everything, very appreciative of what came out, everything else. Then I went to another farm and I've been to about 5 or 6 already. But I just do it because I'm on the road and I just say, well,
You're driving
pull
by,
in.
yeah.
I'll just see what's going on. But they all want the same thing.
What's that?
Lower taxes. And they like the idea of ADUs.
Yes.
And some of them like the idea of having multiple ADUs.
Yes, that's one of the things I wrote down, because I don't know if anybody's read the proposals from the.
Oh, yeah, I did.
I was gonna
I read
ask you
that.
how that went, because I'm so mad I missed it.
That one there, they said they decided that, this is something that's gonna take quite a bit of time, and we're gonna take this in chunks, because there's so much.
Hmm.
So you won't have to
I never,
show up for every single
I
one.
never understood why they did that right from the beginning when they did that subcommittee, right off the rip, they're like, oh, we're gonna give ourselves 6 months. And then they handcuffed themselves to a time, they gave themselves a time frame before they even started. You know what I mean? Like,
A lot of that was because I think a few years earlier, they had another one of these subcommittees that went on for years,
okay,
or close to 18 months or something, and in the end, they just threw it out anyway. So they
Yeah,
said,
because it's supposed to be like ad hocs are supposed to be just.
Yeah.
I think 6 months is like the,
standard.
right,
yeah,
yeah. But the new regulations they have is, this is a total rewrite of all the zoning regulations in the town. I mean,
Yeah, and
top
oh,
to
yeah.
we're
bottom.
talking about just a little piece of it.
We're just talking about, yeah, just a little piece of it.
Actually, I did stop and see Julie at Hodges too, just to give her an update what some of the farmers are talking about.
I found a piece of land that belongs to the town. It's not on the GIS mapping. It's not anywhere. Everybody says, I don't know what you're talking about and everything else. So I dug up all the documents that showed the transfer to the town.
Where is it?
That's out behind. What's
can't
the?
it's like I don't own
That's
it.
a little
no,
problem.
no, it's
Kind of
it's
a farm that
it's
150.
the on Colonel Legend Highway, the stables there. What's the name of them?
Oh,
Mm.
back.
Outback.
Mm.
They subdivided 2 houses.
Yeah.
And they had to give up 10%.
Mhm.
So they had to give up 3 acres and basically.
Oh, I know
it's
exactly what
stripped.
you're talking about. It's actually behind the cul-de-sac there. I forget what it's
No,
called.
that's another town property,
Okay.
but this one here is, it borders the Nature Conservatory. And the Nature Conservatory is now going to be overtaken by Apollonia. So I've been talking to Dennis, Maine, because there's about a half a mile strip there that the two
Hey,
Oh,
trails, Burton and the others, don't connect.
Yeah.
So by having this 75-foot away from the wetlands is now going to enable us to construct a trail. That's why I kept pushing, saying, "Oh, that belongs to us." Put it on the map.
and that's one of the big things too, that a lot of these forest farms you're talking about,
Yes.
they want to have
Hidden
like
property.
Not
when
on
we went
GIS,
to,
not on GIS.
Mystic
by
Valley,
the town.
they want to have that so they can get to these trails. and
Setting up
continue.
an apple orchard. I'm just kidding.
Go from So you don't have to
That's
go
not
in and
too
come out the
closely.
same way. If you start here, then somebody can, bring the
Pick you up the
trailer
other
down.
end,
and get-
which is
exactly.
what this trail would be. You'd start at Burton and end up on Lambtown Road.
Yep.
Once it gets completed. Yeah, I also, I had a conversation with Dennis Mann, and I brought up the subject about Mystic Valley Hunt Club, how they'd be interested in it. He says he's spoken to him about it in the past. He didn't give me any details as to what they decided or what they discussed, but he says, no, he's familiar with it, and he's been in discussions with Sally down about it. So I brought that up with him.
How you doing?
Good. Getting tan, trying.
Yeah, me too.
And when
And I'm not-
are the blueberries gonna be ready?
Uh,
This is important information.
Yeah, so I had a woman.
Very connected.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Come in July.
Sign up for our text messages and we'll send you a text
Oh,
message.
okay.
when we're ready.
The raspberries are ready, right?
That's New Year's. We're
They're
starting.
not, they're getting it.
Well, our raspberries
You're
are opening
his?
tomorrow.
Oh, are
Yeah,
they?
I like literally
Really?
just walked out from hanging signs. Yes. So those open tomorrow and then blueberries.
Okay.
It's so funny. We have like a board at the store
Mhm.
and I was like, about July 10th. And this woman walks in, she's like, so July 10th. I was like,
Man.
about.
Sitting in rain and sun.
That's the favorite grandkids.
I'll tell you, this is-
blueberries.
Oh,
They got the
fantastic.
cake. Well, and the peaches.
We're gonna have to go
Later.
drag you.
Yeah, so every year growing up, we would take a family vacation to the Cape, Northern Cape. And right before blueberries picking started, which I'm doing with my family this next weekend, we're looking forward to it. And one of our family activities that we go there is to go pick blueberries.
And on that note, I'm
All right.
going to call the meeting of the Ledyard Agricultural Commission to order at 6 o'clock. And at this point, I'll do a roll call. Allison Angelini,
Present.
Russell Holmberg,
Present.
Mike Morelli,
Present.
Katie Uhas,
Present.
alternate members, Bill Thorne,
Present.
alternate member Steve Martek,
Present.
Counselor Naomi Rodriguez is in attendance as well. Are there any citizen comments at this point?
The only one I said was, like I said, I spoke to Dennis Main about connecting the trails with
Mike Morelli.
Mike Morelli.
Yep.
With the Mystic Valley Hunt Club, and they said they were in discussions about it, but I don't know if they resolved anything. The other thing too, I wanted to say was, a few meetings back, they talked about an ag page on the town's website. Have we thought any further about that? Or do you want me to explore something like that?
We talked about that way, like one
Yeah.
of our first meetings.
Yes.
There
Yeah.
was something
Right.
there. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, there's not a web, there is a page where we can post stuff. It's not like a,
Right.
Yeah, I thought there was like
Like-
a listing. Like.
I,
it's gotta be-
I dumped some stuff on there from the state. Some of the stuff that we had, some of the information we had, I dumped in that spot. It's not a
Right,
web page, but it's a spot to hold information.
I've seen that. I think you're talking about something different though. aren't you?
Because we were exploring the website, like doing a
Right.
web page, and then that's kind of what we ended up settling on early on.
Mhm.
Because I think it was like money issue, and we were the town, we already had something, we had a spot where we can put stuff.
Is that under, if you, let's say, go to the commissions and then go to Ag Commission?
Yep.
And then you pull up their page and then it'll have like a thing on the side there and you can,
And you can, there's there's folders.
there's folders in there.
Yeah.
Oh, all right,
Right.
then we already have it established then.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I just didn't even know it was there.
But we do have the Ledger, I know it's not associated with us, but there is that Ledger Farmers Facebook page that's, I mean, I look at the resource page and a lot of that stuff gets linked, into the resource page from the Ledger Farmers, what's it called?
For Ledger.
There's
Fall Ledger
four
Farmers.
Ledger
Thank
farmers,
you,
but
for Ledger Farmers. So I mean, there's stuff out there and there's no reason we can't post on that.
Oh, yeah.
They get
I think we
to get
have already.
information out, because I don't think people go to the town site to get that kind of information. Nothing, not that the town site isn't dynamic.
Okay, I guess we're all set on that then. And
Yeah.
answer that question. Are there any more comments? Commission members? Okay, at this point, the minutes have been distributed. Does the public have any amendments to the minutes? Hearing none. Are there any members here who have any adjustments to the minutes? No. In that case, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Russell makes a motion.
I'll second it.
Mike seconds, so the motion's on the table to accept the minutes from the May 17th meeting of 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So carried unanimously. Going
I
back
I
to,
can't vote on that, right? Because
correct, correct.
so.
No, and neither can Steve at this point. Going with unfinished business, discussion, and continue with the farmers. I know for myself, I've contacted farms by phone and I don't get callbacks. And I don't know why, but you know, you leave a message on the answer machine. I don't know who's getting it, but I have done, I've done just pop-ins and I really didn't want to just do the pop-in, but I found that it's the best way to meet the people. You pop in. And there has been nobody chasing me off the property at all. In fact, everybody is very welcoming. They're glad to see the commission. They're glad to see that somebody's taken an interest. And we have got some good feedback from the farmers already. A couple of interesting points is one, they're very interested in, number one, lower taxes. I don't care who they are, lower taxes. And when you talk to some of these farmers, and I'm talking, some of them were in their late 70s, early 80s, I could see where that would be a concern to them, because a lot of them, you know, this is what they have, their farm, and they don't have too much else. So when you're talking an increase in taxes, that it does put a burden on them more than other people. Another thing that was, they really were in favor for is ADUs. They like the idea of the accessory dwelling units. And some of the farms, especially the larger horse farms, were in favor of having more than one ADU. Because that way there, they could have, you know, a couple different workers there, and they could give them a day off now and then. So that was another point. Mike and I went to the Mystic Valley Hunt Club. One of the proposals that Sally there mentioned is that she would like to see that when the town develops greenways or looks for open space for developers, that they look at incorporating something that might be able to hook up to the horse farm so they could have trail rides. They could leave the farm, go to a trail, and then come back or go somewhere else. And especially with the Tri-Town Trail, I think that's something that they really are interested in being able to access. So that was another point. Other than that, I'm just meeting with other farms and, you know, and I know. But I'm just trying to think. And I'm just going to continue with that right now.
Are you keeping a list somewhere of who you've
Yes,
spoken with?
yeah. I have it.
So in that vein, I tried to go out and see.
Bill Thorne speaking.
I'm sorry. Bill Thorne. Anybody really on?
It's for the record. It's for the record.
Okay.
But that was-
Bill Thorne. So I went out and tried to see Audrey and John McVeigh out on Colonel Ledger Highway. Had this, I mean, I've driven up a couple times. I think they all both work other jobs. School's out now, so Audrey might be there. I'll try again, but I've been trying to go out and see them, see how things are going, see if there's anything we can do.
Another one I'm gonna go to, Bruce Garcia, is there's a new farm on Avery Hill Road. And he wants to develop a dude ranch. I don't know if you've heard about this. Yeah,
I go all the way out to Wyoming. This is before. I go all the way out to Wyoming for dude rich.
yeah, no,
Interesting.
on the street.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I haven't met him yet. But that's one of my next ones, because if he's starting a new business,
Is that the parcel that's like dropped down in the valley there, house burnt down a little while ago?
yeah, the old, oh, what the heck was his name? Marshall property.
Okay,
You know which one it is?
I think
It's-
so.
It's right past, it's right near the Avery Preserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, mystery solved, yeah, we're just like, if you can, the gates open every once in a while and you see a truck kind of come and go out of there, so,
Yeah, he bought it, I think, about a year and a half. ago.
yeah,
That's the east side, not your side, of Avery Hill, the other side.
that's the other
It's like
side.
100 acres,
Yeah,
right up to the power lines.
yep,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's it.
I know.
Yeah, that was, I remember when that house burned. Dad and I were both on tractors driving towards the top of the hill because it looked like it was our property on fire.
Yeah.
And it was just, it's because it's right over, right
Yeah.
on the side of the road there.
Yeah. It's cool. So anyway, that's another thing. And another point, and I think we might have mentioned this, touched upon it. Again, they like the idea of the signs. Directing them to what they have and where they are.
That's a state thing.
Depends on what road,
Town if it's a town.
depends on what road they're on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what
They-
road you're on, whether it's a state road or a town. road.
They would attach them to the top of the state signs, is usually how they
Yeah.
run that.
Yeah,
So, and that's actually kind of comfortable in the purview of the Ag Commission. I know driving out to like, I want to say like Hebron or somewhere up there, Marlboro, maybe something like that. They had like a, we support our farms, like as you drive in, that's a town signage program. So I think you have to do everything with the blessing of the DOT, but if town, what do I know? But my understanding is that if the town can have the, whatever it is, Orchard Lane, we could slap something on top of that.
I mean, this is Belthorn, but I think that's why that sign that down here is set so far back.
Right.
Because, they didn't have to deal with the state. That's, Colonel Ledger to town road, and they were able to put that up, but it's not very visible as a result.
Yeah.
So, and you do have a lot of state roads that if we wanted to.
I guess
put those-
Connecticut grown. We had that conversation before.
That's.
If you're gonna use the Connecticut grown, you have to go to the state to get and you get on the list and you get the.
Yeah, but they have those like little top hats, so
Yeah.
whatever the name of the street is there.
And this is Belthorn. I think Paul just gave a couple examples, and truthfully, I see it in Maine all the time now. That's all, it's different, where there's just a sign usually attached to the street sign. It just has, it's about, only about this big, has the business name and an arrow pointing. I think that's a start. And I mean, the town must own those. Like there's a sign at the end of my road, it's Sawmill Drive. And I think he's just interested in attaching something to it that says, what's down this way or what's available. Second step would be the whole state thing, and that would be 214, 117, 12. I mean, we have so many state roads that would be another step, but at least the town roads, we might be able to do something.
As we're speaking, as Mike earlier, as we're speaking about signs in the new proposed zoning regulations, they talk about off-premise signs, but they're limiting to 2 square feet, so it's probably
Mhm.
like this.
That's a start.
It's better than nothing.
Right, better than that. It's a good start. I think that would be good.
They also have regulations concerning signage for a farm stand, farm store. I haven't got all the details here, you can read it, but it's gotta have so much frontage in the road, and you can put up such a sign and everything else like that. So could be regulations. People who are concerned about signage, take a look at them, and maybe make recommendations to them. I don't know. And the other thing we were talking about too is the accessory dwelling units.
Mhm.
That is considered an accessory to a farm. They define it for agricultural purposes for a caretaker or a worker. It's not plural.
Yeah.
Okay, so that may be something, topic of discussion to have with zoning concerning that, that's
Mhm.
probably not viable for the places that really need it.
Yeah, this is Bill Thorne. I was wondering about that. I mean, right now, the ordinance is really driven by the state statute that's come down, which really is trying to increase the rental units in rural areas. But I think we need to maybe look separately at farms. I mean, if you got 160 acres, I mean, you're limited to one
Yeah.
ADU. I mean,
Right, that's, yeah.
but I mean,
The town's been down this road before, and that was not their conclusion. So when they did, it's like just reading by what was there. They they did it 2 or 3 times before, and it comes and it goes and it comes and goes. The last incarnation was an ADU per 50 acres.
Right.
That makes sense. So if you have 170 acres, you could have 3 houses on that. It's just standalone structures. So it's like, we'll start there. Like, that would seem like a pretty easy pitch to be like, well, like, let's start there and see where that goes. There's a lot of pushback to it because it can seem pretty obvious, because it's like, there's precedent.
yeah, so this is Bill Thorne. I mean, right now, there's obviously that the proposed zoning for ADUs doesn't really address farming, and I'm thinking maybe there ought to be almost a separate section that addresses farming with an acreage associated with multiple ADUs. Now, what that thing relates to a state statute, which doesn't have to do with farming, but we could stick it in there just the
Yeah,
same.
okay.
and say, if for farms in excess of, I mean, even 20 acres, you could put up, 2
Yeah.
as opposed to 1. Now, they're small. If you go by the ordinance or the zoning that's coming down, they would be small units. And I don't know how they would do it because they're tied to a percentage of the primary dwelling unit
Mhm.
in there, which, for a farm, maybe it's not appropriate. I don't know. So I mean, and especially since that's being talked about and being addressed and it's being pushed because of the state, now would be the time, I think, to see if we can get something in there for the farmers, because you mentioned it, Paul's mentioned it, several people have
Yeah.
mentioned it, that's something that I think now's the time to do it while it's being discussed and proposed.
Yeah.
And I think people in general would be much more agreeable to having it for farms than just in general, which is what's happened now. So I think it's a good time. So maybe could we, I don't know how we go about working with zoning I mean, we got, I think 17th of July, they're doing
Yeah, probably the next one, yeah.
they're doing a special meeting with a public hearing on.
You can always, either as a commission or as individuals, right? You can always submit things in writing to them.
Yeah.
The meetings are always
Yeah.
open, so you can talk to them. And this is also run into some other things I was looking at too. It's saying it's accessory building, all right? There's also rules and regulations for accessory buildings. Like one of them is, like you said, it can't be more than 80% larger than the main dwelling.
30.
It can only be something, you're right.
Small.
Now they're talking, which if you turn around and they consider hoop houses an accessory,
Ah,
well, obviously, if you got 3 of them, that's bigger. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
are you going to sit there and say, oh, no, you can't build that because it's much larger than your house? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's say it was a barn.
But this built barn, but that it's obviously, if you look how it flows down from the state statute, it's obviously for residents.
Yeah.
Because they talk about you gotta have bedrooms and kitchens and stuff, so. If they try to squeeze that into hoop houses, that would be, that would be drastic.
This is Allison Angelini. That is currently how it works, though. We tried to put up a 30 by 72 greenhouse or high tunnel a couple years ago, but because it's considerably larger than our house, we had to have a public hearing. And
That's ridiculous.
It's
Well, this
ridiculous.
is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
They keep saying we want to make it easier for farms.
Yeah.
Let's make it easier for them.
I
Let's be realistic. You know what I mean? And so maybe that's something that needs to be addressed.
Mhm.
There's also another thing like that with accessories. They have setbacks.
Yeah.
Right? Setbacks are they're real generous. You know what I mean? It's not this thing like before, they were proposing 200 feet for a barn and stuff like
Right.
that. So is that going to apply to all structures, all accessory structures, which would include farm structures?
Mhm.
So there's a couple of things I think, I saw that, we need to speak to them out or, adjust stuff like that. You know what I mean? One of the other things I saw is they call something called a commercial farm is larger than 5 acres. It sells wholesale, it sells to another location. But then again, they allow a farm store. So what is the difference between commercial and,
It's where it's being sold to, direct to consumer
Right.
versus.
I just
Yeah.
think that might need a clarification. I don't know.
I think they're trying, my understanding, and not to speak for them, but my interpretation of that was that they're just trying to try to kind of break down some sort of a size class to make provisions for smaller farms and how you deal where you have this kind of, when you get over 5 acres, I mean, we can all kind of close our eyes and picture, Wisconsin Dairyland, they're all over 5 acres. Those are, tractors coming and going, buildings. I mean, when we start to get into some less than 5 acres or less than 3 acres, it's just kind of, I think it was just a tool zoning was using to try to be like, let's just kind of make a delineation here. I mean, maybe commercial is probably maybe a poor choice of words. I don't know.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, when Joan Nichols came to speak to this committee early when in our establishment, she really advised against allowing the use of the commercial. And when we were working through the draft with that subcommittee, I made a point of going through and getting rid of all of the times that it said commercial, but it's easy for things like that to sneak back in, because people are just trying to find the right vocabulary.
This is Bill Thorne. Allison, is it, but there's state statutes that address like farm stands and stuff, right? Isn't that like a right for, in Connecticut to
I
basically?
think it's more of not a right, but a proposal that they have, like a guidance. It's a guidance.
But I
and
mean,
then you can adopt it or not.
Right, but I mean, I think if you're on a small scale, and you want to put
Done by the town.
pardon?
That everything, all of those sort of details are done through the town. The state can't, I
They
think
can
people
make recommendations, I believe.
hear that like right to farm, rule, and they think that it means that they have the right to do whatever they want on their own farm, but it's not quite the level of support that you're imagining from the state, because it's the town that sets the zoning regulations, and the state doesn't have any jurisdiction over that.
Well, this is Bill again. I thought that like a farm stand, that if you had you could, if you had excess produce, you could set up a farm stand and the town really couldn't keep you from doing that. Maybe I'm crazy.
I actually believe you're correct on that. Bruce starts.
Yeah.
I think you can.
No, the town can, depending on the town, they can decide if you're allowed to sell in front of your house or not. From a state perspective, it's yes, you can from a state perspective. If I have 5 extra eggs for my chickens, I can go and put it on the front step. But the town can tell you, no, we don't allow that.
Okay.
Which is another bugaboo of mine, so address.
Okay.
So the state, or the town rather, when we did this, and Allison can probably close this gap better than I, there was a tiered, like you can have a very small newsstand kind of thing out front at one level.
Yes.
But once you start getting into like a structure, then, so they were trying to break down like farm stand versus store. So the stand, it was like, it had to be kind of within the mailbox right away at like 10 feet or so of the road. And it had to have whatever it was 50-foot setback from an intersection. So you weren't creating a blind spot, something along those lines. And then the farm store would be a more permanent structure. And I remember that coming up. I mean, Bruce was, not Bruce, Kevin Dabrowski was sitting in. I was like, this sounds like shed versus garage. And he's like, yep, there you go. like you can have a shed, but it's kind of a low permit threshold, but we still kind of want to know what you're doing to make sure you're not creating a blind corner. Because at that point, yes, you can grow all the onions in the backyard you want. You can sell them, that's fine, but you can't create a hazard to the community by saying, I'm going to sell them with this, even if it's a phone booth size thing. They just kind of wants to know where it was. So there was some sort of tiers, and I don't
I
know.
think it's 200 square feet.
Was it? Yeah, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, it seemed, I think it mimicked the shed kind of
Yeah.
Yeah. That does.
thing. So-
An open thing with a lean-to roof over the top.
Right, it was like enclosed versus it was something size and permanent. I don't know. I could be thinking of a different town.
So, yeah. But there's provisions for all that. I mean, I believe existing is certainly in the draft that we submitted.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, it's in the
It's in there.
new regulations. And I believe it's in the.
I think it's in the
current-
old one.
Yeah.
the current.
Again, it's Bill Thorne. I think that's sort of the difference, and maybe why they need to differentiate the commercial farm versus the home husbandry.
No, that's different.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the issue. I think, more what they were concerned about is like the difference between, Mike wanting to sell eggs, from a small stand on his front step versus like Tractor Supply. That's where they're trying to set the boundary, is like, the conversations that were had were about structure size, structure location, but also like what's being sold. And also hours of operation was something that were discussed, but that's sort of the spectrum that we're talking about when we talk about on-farm sale of goods? Is it, are you Tractor Supply, or are you a cooler by your mailbox? And where do we set guidelines in between?
Yeah, and public access too, especially when it comes to like, events and stuff like that. So you use the example of, hey, if you want to site a house on 170 acres, that should be no problem. We all kind of nodded in agreement. If you want to do a wedding on 170 acres, yeah, you can probably find someplace in the middle of 170 acres that you're not really going to inconvenience a lot of people. And okay, so is it 150? Is it 120? Is it 75? Is it 60? At what point do you just kind of be like lock and load? This should be an easier permit process. Where do you draw that line? And I think that 5 acres and the use of language, in my understanding of it, and I could be way off the mark, was just somebody just kind of saying, all right, we're getting close here to where it's going to be hard to do this. Let's kind of make some sort of a delineation there. And so semantics might be off, the size might be off, but I think, in my opinion, the intention is valid. I think trying to kind of bracket at some point kind of makes sense.
Yeah, Mike, I believe when they speak farm stands, they're speaking of a farm already. When they speak of home husbandry, it is labeled non-commercial. Okay, so that means, according to town regulations, I can't put that dozen eggs out there. That means I can't harvest honey and register with the state and go to the farmer's market, because that's commercial.
I actually thought home husbandry, that was one of
Yes.
they could sell at a farmer's market, but they couldn't sell other places.
Correct. The state says you can do it farmers markets, or you can sell, I can sell to you, or you, or you. I cannot sell to another party. Let's say bring it to the store and have
Oh,
them
yeah,
sell.
yeah,
it
yeah,
for me.
okay, got
The
it.
state
yeah.
doesn't allow
But that
that.
doesn't allow, I thought that
Yeah.
stands fell, like farm stands fell into that same, this
Mm.
built on, fell into that same category as farmer's market type thing.
I don't believe so.
Well, we're
Right.
obviously a lot of questions.
Yeah. There's-
No wonder the farmers are confused, because I'm confused.
It's just that the way I'm reading it, you know what I mean? And being devil's advocate.
Yeah,
And like sometimes there's been problems with people trying to get things on their farms. And if it's not written down, they say, oh, you can't do it.
Right.
Or they go to, there's something that's not covered, so they take another part of the zoning regulation, say, well, this is gonna cover that. So I just try to be a little bit
Yeah.
more specific. Therefore, the farmers are not gonna run into problems when they want to expand or they want to change something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's more what I'm looking at.
this Bill Thorne, well, exactly what you said, if hoop houses are put in the category of auxiliary, of course, these are auxiliary dwelling units. But if they're put into that category, obviously, you're not gonna be able to put in a very big hoop house, depending on how big your house is. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of questions that, I read them, I read them, I'm not smart enough to figure out, all the ins and outs, and that's why I think like Allison ran into problems. Because to some extent, you were right. At some point, common sense has to apply, and maybe we lack a little of that common sense when they apply the zoning requirements. Somebody I was talking to the other day about hoop houses, said a lot of the concern about those is really more directed at the people that want to put those temporary garages. Maybe it was here we were talking about this, temporary garages. And, yet they were kind of put in the farmers were put in the same category as, so you can just see that's an issue of like, what was the intent? And can we apply common sense here versus, just.
Well, I think that, Bruce Custer here, I think that's one of the reasons you have a zoning enforcement officer. When you apply for a hoop house for agricultural purposes, that's what it's supposed to be for. And then now if they change the use, that's where your zoning enforcement officer should come into play.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be hampering the farmer simply because, well, this could happen.
Right.
Well, a lot of things could happen, but until that does, you do have a remedy to take care of that situation. So I think sometimes I think they're looking at what could happen, what's the bad thing that could happen versus what's the intent of the person that wants it now. Anyway. Any other old business?
Well, I was looking at also for the,
Yep.
what they call activities,
Yeah, like
right? And they
agritourism
said,
too.
yeah, they said that they would permit certain activities on 5 acres and above,
Mhm.
other activities on 10 above. I really didn't devolve into those because there'd be people that might be interested in that stuff to know a whole lot more. That should read them and say whether it's, usually viable or not, whether they make any sense. Because I really don't, like Sarah Margot, you know what I mean? He would have a better idea as to, whether these regulations make any sense or not. I really don't.
We could stop and see Paul again. I'm sure he's.
Well, I mean, this is Bill Thorne. I mean, the thing is these things are already sort of in draft form and being sort of, proposed. I mean, they just had in February, they passed some new zoning requirements, and then these other ones are now evolving. I mean, they're gonna go into effect here if we don't look at it from an agricultural perspective and maybe intervene. That what's written is the way it's gonna go. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't modify it later, but now might be the time, for example, the ADUs and have a separate paragraph for farms and maybe look at multiple units for, 20 acres, 50 acres, something like that, specifically for farming. So they don't become a short-term rental, a VRBO type thing, which is, my big concern about that. Reason.
Or it turns into, like they have in Europe, where they have a residence and you rent it, right? It's like a hotel.
Yeah.
And you work on the farm, where you just visit, and that's where you spend the night. It's like a bed and breakfast on a farm. So, you could probably, they could write something to the effect that, no, that's not what we intend.
Anyways, I think, I don't know, where are we, where's this discussion, this Bill Thorne, I'm willing to try to propose a statement from the ag and send to you to maybe forward to the zoning board about things we might like to address specifically for farmers. So I'll take that on.
I would send it to Christina
Okay,
and then she can disseminate it.
okay,
She'll put it into their correspondence.
Right off
Okay.
the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right.
Or you could tell her just hold on, or I could stop. in.
But I think it probably should come from you
Yeah,
to the,
okay, yeah. it's
Yeah.
not a problem.
okay, because I'm not even a member technically.
But you're a citizen of the town.
Well,
so
true. I could do it from the citizen's perspective.
concerned
We can
citizen
appoint you.
knows.
Liz. Here we are. So- No, I think that would be wise.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. Any other discussion on? Oh,
No, I thought I was gonna check something out, and I didn't get to it, because I looked on my list here and I saw I didn't do it. We were looking to see if there was a tax exemption legend for farm equipment.
I did that. It was Bill Thorne. So I got it with the tax assessor. She was very nice. She helped me out a lot because I didn't understand it. So there's a state statute that addresses both equipment and buildings. And the state statute says the town has to provide up to $100,000 for equipment, tax exemption. You can go an additional 100,000, but the town has to basically agree to that or put it in an ordinance, and they decided not to.
Right.
So right now, farmers have up to $100,000 exemption for farm equipment. The state statute is for buildings, doesn't, just specifies the town has to authorize that. So the town has an ordinance for buildings. And that's right now up to 100,000 per building. It does say exclusively for agricultural use.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure, if it's attached to your, how that works exactly. And right now, anybody that spends and submits a Schedule F, expends or shows sales of 15,000 can be considered a farm, and they get those exemptions.
They have both of them in this town. then.
Pardon?
They have both of those?
Well, they have one ordinance, and the ordinance it addresses buildings.
Right.
Because the state statute says,
Oh, they have to. State says you must.
no,
Or you
only
can.
for equipment.
Right.
Equipment says you have to exempt the first 100,000 property tax for equipment. There's another, the statute says you can opt for another 100,000, which I think is what Paul's talking about, for equipment, but it has to be approved by the municipality.
Mhm.
I think that's what's Paul's. Buildings, it doesn't, it says the municipality has to agree to it, and they have. We have an ordinance that says 100,000 per building, up to 100,000 per building for farms. And to be considered a farm, you just have to submit some paperwork,
Mhm.
show your Schedule F, and you can get that exemption. The other thing I don't know is how they, if it was dual use, how they, if you had a garage to park your car and also park your tractor, I'm not sure how
They'd
that.
probably go percentage. Like,
Yeah, maybe a
percentage of use.
percentage, they don't really. But she was very,
Mhm.
and you have that exemption, you have the PA 490, and I talked to them a little bit about that. And so there's a lot out there. I'm just assuming the farmers all know about it. And they're all taking advantage of it.
Well, that's one of the, Bruce Garcia, that's one of the questions I asked them, and most are aware of it.
Yeah.
In fact, one gentleman, he's near 80. He asked me to check on his property just to make sure he's getting all the deductions. he can. And so I did, and he is. And
Okay.
I went to the assessor as well. She says, no, he's getting everything that he should be.
Okay.
So I said at the last meeting, I was like, there was a change there, and I didn't want to like overstep these. That the difference was that because there was the equipment thing was up in the air, but the building thing for sure changed like a year or two ago. And it used to just be 100,000 cap, and then it went to 100,000 per building. That's huge. Strategically, you're going to get a lot more meat out of per building than you are, 100,000 per equipment. Paul's right, that is a tractor these days. So yeah, you buy a second tractor, yay. But buildings, should you reside on a farm that has a lot of outbuildings, that could be incredibly useful. So that was the change there. So, and I know when town council passed that, there's some discussion about like, hey, we have an increasing mill rate here. Like could be so somewhat of a handout. So I mean, the town hasn't been doing nothing. I mean, that's a recent change that reduced the taxes. So they're doing something.
Now, this Bill Thorne, I mean, it was a conscious decision not to give the extra 100,000 for equipment. That was a conscious, they said it felt it wasn't necessary right now. So it was looked at, I mean, and discussed and decided not to do that.
Bruce Garcia, but there's not many farms that would really spend more than $100,000. Now, is that per
No,
total?
go,
So if you had 4 tractors,
it's 100,000.
100,000 limit. Okay, well,
Whereas the
Your sprayers-
buildings,
That goes pretty quick.
when the
Yeah.
building is every building.
Yeah.
It's really, it's.
yeah. Yeah, you get a sprayer, you get everything else. It's,
But that and this is Bill Thorne in conjunction with the, PA 490, that kind of gives you that overall tax break. I
Mhm.
mean, there's some pretty,
yeah, just step in the
pretty
right
good,
direction.
pretty good tax breaks, for them. And, I think that, the equipment thing, I think it's, you got a lot of businesses that own a lot of equipment and hauling around, they're not getting tax
Mhm.
breaks. So, maybe that's kind of, but the state, has mandated, the equipment and then, left it up to the municipalities to deal with the buildings, which the town has done.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm not a farmer, so I don't know the issues, but it seems like they've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too, that Bruce starts to hear. If they don't help out on the taxation, then the farms are gonna disappear. And I think they realize that. So there's where their intent lies. If you could keep the farms in business, you're gonna maintain the character of the town, which is paramount, I think.
And I think this is Bill Thorne again. I think the only thing that, I mean, I know the big farms know, but I mean, all you have to do is show that, you have to put in a Schedule F and show you spend. You don't even have to have some shit sales. That's the way the assessor, you just spend $15,000. You can get those tax exemptions. You can be designated a farm and get those tax exemptions.
I think it's 2 years. Then after that, you gotta show a profit.
That she did not say that. Now, I asked her specifically, I go, what about, she did not say that. In fact, I said, well, what about the farms that sort of transition in and then out? And she said, you know, it's sort of like pretty, once you're on, you're in now.
Yeah. Well, Bruce
But you have to
Garcia,
do a Schedule F every year.
yeah, well, let me tell you, so the IRS is not gonna allow you to do a Schedule F year after year after year.
Well, that may
If you
be
show
true.
a loss, you're gonna be in jail. You're gonna be right next to Bernie Madoff there, because you can't do that. They will not allow it. You have to have the intent of making a profit. And if you don't make a profit, it's usually the thing within 6 years, you know, you're gonna be in trouble. So I wouldn't really go by that advice of just bringing in a Schedule
Well,
F that shows. a
I mean, that's
loss.
her, I mean, that's the difference between the IRS and her.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe bring a Schedule F into her and not do it to the IRS would be the best way.
I don't know.
Otherwise, you're gonna go to jail.
Well, it's, you know, we own a VRBO out in California. We've never made any money on it in years. Our tax guy keeps saying, well, yeah. Because I felt the same way. Well, aren't they gonna eventually say, you gotta make some money on this business? But anyways,
Well, that's a different type of business.
yeah.
But anyway.
Alrighty.
Well, I mean, I think that, I get this Bill Thorny guy, I do think that the town has done a good job, and I don't think there's any area that we want to necessarily get involved in, other than this, make sure all the farmers know about it and are taking advantage of it. So,
Yeah, one of the things that just kind of tag on to that is that when we're talking about zoning stuff, what I heard and all that is that there is an infrastructure that exists within the town to convey a benefit specifically to farmers above and beyond maybe the residential lot next to them. In order to do that, they have to go to town hall and prove that they're a farmer in perhaps a somewhat uncomfortable way, like a tax return, to say, oh, look, this is what I'm actually doing. We all understand that this is indeed a farm, and as such, I'm going to reap these benefits. And that just keeps ringing through my head whenever we talk about zoning, and it's just like, oh, I just want to declare I'm a farm. It doesn't work that at the tax assessor's office. You can't it doesn't come out of thin air. I mentioned this specifically because when we went through the ADU process years ago to get our structures for our seasonal labors, that was the litmus we had to pass. And we didn't consider it a big ask because we qualified. It seems like if you're fidgeting about that, it's just kind of like you're like, well, if you're problem there, you're probably gonna have a problem with the IRS too. Like, it doesn't mean we have to follow that exact model, but there's precedent there, and there's precedence that's been deployed within the town before. So we think about zoning there's a lot of like, oh, I'm not gonna have to show a tax form. I know that had come up with the talk with the farmer. I don't want to show my tax exempt form. I showed it to the manager at Tractor Supply last week. That's a pretty low hurdle here, you know.
but there are, this Bill Thorne, there are some, you're right, there's some forms. I mean, besides the Schedule F, there's forms you have to fill out. And she handed me a couple, filled them out of the thing, and handed me a couple of forms that have to be filled out in order to do that. So it's, yeah, it's not just, and maybe that's a place we could. But again, I sort of feel like, and you said if an 80-year-old guy knows all about this stuff, I mean, taxes is something people usually are pretty up on.
Yeah, if it's too high, they'll go see the assessor and they'll usually say, okay, what do you got? Yep.
So anyways,
Anything else under unfinished business? Mike?
How was it, Mike, really? Did Paul also mention that maybe we join the Connecticut Farm Bureau?
Yeah.
How do we go about doing, or should we?
We could do it as a commission or we could do it as an individual. I think, Allison, I believe you're a member? Oh, she's.
My audio keeps cutting in and out. Can you repeat the question?
My question is, for the Connecticut Farm Bureau, I believe you're a member?
Yes.
And, okay, so as a member, and I think it's free to join if I'm not mistaken.
No, I pay $200 a year.
200, okay. Why was I talking to somebody? I talked to somebody. I said, no.
Municipalities might have either a steep discount or they might be free.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Okay. Okay. Look at that.
Joan is one to ask.
Yeah, Jen.
Joan Nichols.
Happily.
Okay.
is there a this is Bill Thorne, is there a downside to not? I mean, why wouldn't we join?
No, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Especially if it's free. I mean, it's-
I'll look into Joan Nichols. And
We like
get in
free.
touch with her.
Yeah, there's a meeting of the New London County Farm Bureau in town at an orchard right on the other side of town.
Really? Anyone we know?
Somebody you might know.
When-
Hold on, I can give you the date. I have to look at my phone. We're having what do they call it? Pizza dinner.
Even better.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have enough acres to hold that?
The black helicopters are gonna show up, shut it down.
What a picket.
Sometime in, I think, early September. Because we don't have enough going on in September. So I'm the Farm Bureau now. That's good though. So that should be, get you the date. We have a. At some point in September, early September, or late August, we'll be having a pizza dinner for the.
It's like a weekend thing or like a weeknight?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Oh,
night,
I know it's a Tuesday. There we go.
Tuesday
I can
evening.
put it down. I mean, I should just search function.
Allison, this is Bill Thorne. I mean, out of the farms in Ledger, you have going to the meetings or through your contacts. Is it a small number of farms in Ledger that belong or is it a lot? I mean, a lot being, a high percentage of the farms in Ledger.
I mean, I think I don't know the answer is the easiest response. I think a lot of farmers join the Farm Bureau for discount on insurance and also, if they're in need of advocacy assistance.
Okay.
This seem to be like the two biggest perks for smaller scale farms. A lot of larger farms greatly benefit from the lobbying efforts that they do, but I don't have a town, an understanding of what that looks like on the town level.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you nailed it. I was on a marketing meeting for the Farm Bureau as a focus group years ago. It's like this, it's like nationwide. Everybody was just like, you had to get the discounts on the insurance first and foremost. But the advocacy is the work that Joan Nichols does. She is an impressive person and does incredibly good work. It is worth every penny. So yeah, and you get a cool placard. We used to get a placard. All the farms. That's how you can tell. You could drive by and have it on the barn, and then the little sticker. Yep.
I'm trying to
I don't
remember,
know.
there was some.
You don't have a placard?
That's it. Call Joan. She'll make it up.
Business card.
There was something recently, I'm trying to remember what it was, that she was helping, it was like some sort of a grant. It was some sort of grant, and she was helping people apply for the grant. And like the stipulation is join the Farm Bureau and I'll help you apply. So I think that there's a lot of benefits to join the Farm Bureau. If you are in need of help, members, you have full access to Joan and her group and what they do.
So this is Bill Thorne. So we're gonna try to move in that.
Yeah, I'll give John a call and
Sounds good.
go forward with the town.
Sounds good.
So the New London County Farm Bureau is on the September 20th at I think 6 o'clock. So
And there's pizza.
pizza and a probably pretty baggy-eyed apple grower at that.
6 o'clock? 6?
I think so. Yeah.
Apple cider.
6:30. 6:30. It says-
6:30.
Yeah, it says bring a friend. So there we go.
All right.
Is it 17th again?
20th.
The 20th.
20th, oh, why?
You can come on the 70th. I won't turn this off.
You don't get pizza though.
You don't get
You get
pizza.
apples.
I get apples. I get put to work.
Yes,
You'll be down, yeah.
That's exactly, yeah.
Why is the gate closing behind me? You'll see.
On that note, any other old business? New business? Any new business for anyone? Well, I have one that I'm thinking about. I went to the historical commission meeting last night. And the one thing that I noticed is that all of these commissions or committees that we have are really not aware of what each other's doing. our committee makes decisions. Councilor Rodriguez is here. She brings it up to the town council. The town council can disseminate the information. I'm not sure, it's almost like too many levels and it doesn't go. And I'm wondering if we would benefit by maybe having a yearly meeting with the chairman, vice chairman of all the different committees in the town. For me, just kind of like, here's what we'd like to do, just kind of a roundtable discussion, so everybody would know where we're headed. It might be helpful that way versus where we're saying something and it goes up and then, you know, it may come down 2 months later, but by the time, and then when somebody's making a decision here, they don't know how it affects over here. But maybe if we got together once a year, I think it's plenty. I don't think you have to overdo it because you do have a change of people that are on committees, on commissions, on the town council, everything else, everything changes. But the one thing that doesn't change in a lot of areas is what you're trying to accomplish. And I think if you got like a yearly meeting and you just kind of met informally and you're able to talk, I think it'd be a great thing.
I think in politics, they call it the smoke-filled room.
Back to it. No, I mean, I think, but what it is it's just communication between, like if we were meeting with planning and zoning, we were there, we could be discussing ADUs, and when they're doing their regulations, that would have been already in their back of their mind. I just think it would be a benefit on a yearly basis to have a meeting.
Yeah, it's built on, I mean, I agree, but maybe not, I mean, maybe land use, zoning. I mean, do you really want to meet with well, maybe the beautification commission, maybe you do. Yeah, no, but I mean, there's some commissions, committees that really have a bearing on similar issues that we're dealing with.
Exactly.
And I think, you know, so maybe as opposed to everybody, but you know, I think that.
Well, I think,
Go ahead. No, I think, I mean, I can see the connection. I mean, you know, land use, I think is a, big one. Zoning, obviously, we've been talking about that. That's a big one, you know, and but, you know, and then, you know, at those things, maybe, you know, have the zoning official and the planning person and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're sitting here talking about this stuff, and I've been, you know, talking to Harry, different issue, but the ADUs, which, you know, had, you know, sort of from a citizen's perspective. So, but otherwise, they, you know, I don't know how they even know. I mean, obviously they go to the zoning board meetings, but yeah, I mean, do they know what we're talking about?
Yeah.
They don't.
Well, that's like last night at the Historical Society meeting. You know, I mentioned to them, I said, you know, do you ever take a look at stone walls and legend or anything? And has it ever been proposed? Like, have you ever gotten in touch with planning and zoning and say, okay, if a new subdivision comes through, let's try to save maybe the perimeter stone walls or these stone walls, or do you just like kind of let it go and let them get bulldozed and buried and that's the end of it? So I think there's aspects where I think if this committee kind of knew where we were looking at and we knew what they were thinking about and planning, zoning and land use, it might be helpful. It might just.
This is Mike Morelli,
Yeah.
all right. I've already spoken to the town planner about this a few months ago.
Mhm.
And she agrees that, yeah, she would sing a little bit more frequent than we were recommending, but she saw the same thing because she asked me the same thing. And she says, land use doesn't know what conservation's doing, conservation doesn't.
Yeah.
I said, well, conservation knows what everybody's doing because I read everything.
Mhm.
All right, but no, these other ones don't. She just said, well, how does this function? You should all get together, let's say quarterly. And tell everybody what's going on, so everybody's on the same page. So it's not a novel idea.
Oh,
You
well,
know?
well,
Sorry.
well, I know I proposed it at work where I used to work,
No.
and it worked out well.
Yeah.
We went from, you know, I'm just gonna digress a little bit, but we went from having all sorts of complaints and animosity between different departments that within 3 or 4 months, it was already starting to change and get cleared up. Within a year, everybody knew where everybody was. So I think we were meeting on a monthly basis, but I think that might be a bit
Bit
much.
much, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, I just think it's a good idea to meet anyway.
I get this, Bill Thorne. I guess the question I would have
Yeah.
is how does that, I mean, we're obviously, mean, we're not gonna be able to go as the ag commission and say, hey, we think we have the whole township, you know, these, all these. So that really needs to sort of come from the,
Well,
they're all the committees are appointed by the town council.
well, this is what I was thinking, maybe make a motion.
You're right. So
If we make a motion to present this proposal, to have the town council look into it and, you know, either annual, semi-annual, quarterly, whatever they think is best. Maybe twice a year might work the best right in the beginning, just to. I'm gonna throw this out to Councilor Rodriguez. Your thoughts on this?
I love the idea. I think it's needed. I've seen it because luckily I go to different committees and it's like a full-time job. I can't go to everything, like the historical.
I don't know how you guys do it.
I wanted to go to that one, but at the same time, there was another meeting. And I thought I'll go to this meeting, it'll end first, and then I'll run over to the historical. It went longer than I thought. So I missed the historical one. I'm not on that committee, but I try to get around to different committees because that's the only way I'm going to know what's happening around town. So that when it comes to take a vote, I'm aware or I have some insight. Comes in very handy. I love the idea. I think it's very much needed. Your idea of making a motion and then sending it on the path is the right move. But make the motion, but send an additional letter to Roxanne of what you would like to do. And also send it to the mayor, the town council, and Juliet Hodge. That way you're covering all your bases. And everybody knows what, everybody's on the same page.
Again, you said Roxanne, the mayor, and Juliet Hodges? Is that it?
And town council.
And town council.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's very much needed, especially when it comes to land use, agricultural committee, conservation, inland wetlands, and planning and zoning. Those are the ones that are the key that should be always in communication with each other. And what I'm seeing is that I remember being on planning and zoning maybe 10 years ago. And I remember talking about the stone walls, that we wanted to keep them intact. So we would make that request, whether it was done or not, once they started making the subdivisions, I don't know. But that needs to be brought up. This is what we're interested in, maintaining. Another thing, you made a comment maybe a month ago. I was on vacation, but there was a comment made about how ordinances are made and they're made for the good. But sometimes they forget that this is going to have a negative effect on farmers. So there's an ordinance, a complaint that came forward to land use about commercial vehicles being left in residential neighborhoods overnight. And it's dangerous. And I think Juliet came up with some wording. And it's not, I already looked at the minutes, it's not linked on yet. But she gave us all a hard copy. In reading that hard copy, it mentioned farms and farming equipment. So I made a comment, look, at their last meeting, they said we need to take it into effect, how this would take it into
Consideration how. it affects,
consideration
yeah.
how it will affect the farmers. So then Kevin Dombrowski said, okay, strike that whole sentence. Don't even include the farmers, you know. So, but luckily I was able to attend the meeting by Zoom. You know, I was on vacation. What if I had missed that comment? And then it wouldn't have gone to land use. So do you see those little tiny things? It's hard to have someone go to every single meeting. But planning and zoning right now, that is critical. I don't know if you thought of putting a farmer on planning and zoning whenever there's an opening, but it might be a good idea. But at least meeting with these other commissions that have something in common, that's the best step you can take right now. We really need to move forward with that. So a strong letter in support would be beneficial.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Thank you very much. Planning and zoning, land use, inland wetlands, agricultural commission, conservation.
If you would seem, if I understand your concept, you would be going as our delegate, right? Or right? Where you're.
No, you are. I disappointed you.
That's why he's clarifying.
He raised his hand.
Did you make the motion?
No, just, I'm like, it seems like they're just good at anything.
Well, I think it would be wise. I think it would be wise to have at least 2 members go. I think if you start getting more, then you get,
That's what, that's what I feared, is you have kind of mob and it breaks into groups.
yeah, I
I
think if you
would
just,
be there anyways,
Yeah.
conservation.
so I think it'd be wise to have a couple people going and, you know, because you don't want it too large where you can't get anything done.
That was my, the
And you
only,
don't want it too small so that, you know, it's good, I think, for each commission or committee to.
Yeah.
Feel. that they have.
yeah, the only caution I had on the whole thing would be getting too many people together. Like,
Yeah, I
you
don't think
kinda
that, I
need
don't
to
think
kinda
that,
Winnow it down and.
yeah, I would say if you could just. Like the chairman or vice chairman, I think that would be more than enough. Your comment on that, Councilor Rodriguez, you think that would be a better way to go?
Yes, because something always comes up. So your 2 might turn out to 1.
Yeah.
If you do 5 committees, you got 5 people.
Mhm.
You preferred the 10, but you may not get the 10.
Okay, thank you. Well, on that note, I guess, and before we make any kind of motions here, it looks like we want to construct a letter that would go to Roxanne, the mayor, Juliet Hodges, and the town council. Request a meeting of the chairman and the vice chairman of the following committees: P and Z, land use, inland wetlands, agricultural, and conservation. And either,
Something to the effect of an annual or biannual. I'm trying to think of a word that would reflect something that's constant.
Yeah.
Not, the way you've got to word it now, it sounds like once.
no, yeah,
You see what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I can't think of, I don't know what word.
Well, we'll just throw it out there as annual or. Plan, right? And then-
Probably.
Yeah, annual,
Well, you could, as Bill Thorne, you can schedule the annual and then, you know, if like right now, things are pretty dynamic with the zoning changes that are occurring. But, you know, maybe 2 years from now, things are pretty stagnant and you don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, I think right now, it's, you know, there's a lot going on. With new zoning changes and
Mhm.
we know that, you know, the ADUs are, well, that zoning is not directed at farmers, it affects farmers. And I think it's, I'm sure they haven't considered that in zoning, not, and that's not a slam on them, it's just they haven't figured out, you know, because it's coming down from the state, which really doesn't really address farming, it's
Right.
has to do with increasing the rental property in the town, well, in urban areas, I guess. So, yeah, I think do it annually and then you can always modify that. or
Yeah, you know,
can't-
We can always just go to the meeting too, but I think it's just the idea of having.
The
everybody
idea of
aware.
getting people that have a common, you know, interact together. Yeah.
Pig roast, are we thinking pig roast?
I like
We
that.
can
idea.
host, tag commission, host the annual.
Well, it's gonna be more than 2 people for each group. then.
How many acres
Hey,
do
we
you
get
for a
pizza
pig?
and pig.
Cider?
Yeah.
Cider.
Cider, pig roast, the ag commission
big and
annual.
hard cider. Ooh.
So on that, do we want to forward a motion on that to formulate a letter that would go to?
Do we need a motion?
Well, I think it would be the wisest thing to do. That way it would come from the commission.
Okay, I make a motion that the agricultural commission draft a letter to mayor, land use, conservation, Roxanne, whatever, the list that you have there, regarding a get together to discuss common issues.
May or may not include pig roast.
So we have a motion on the floor. or-
I second.
Katie seconds. So the motion is to draft a letter that would be sent to Roxanne, the mayor, Juliet Hodges, and the town council, requesting that P and Z, land use, inland wetlands, agricultural, conservation commission have an annual meeting just to discuss common issues. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So carried unanimously. Okay, well, are there any other new business to come before the commission? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion.
We have a
Seconded.
motion, seconded by Mike. So all in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And this meeting is over at 7:03 PM. Thank you very much, everybody.
Hardest part's gonna be finding a pig.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, they're ridiculous right now.
Oh, you mean in terms of the cost?
No, like
Just getting one?
$130 is cheap for a piglet right now. You used to be able to get them for 60, 80 bucks.
That should be all. off the
I guess
list,
there's
right?
big
Yeah,
pinch
it's all
points.
because
Huh?
speaking, we're not
Okay.
each other.
Big pinch points at the slaughterhouses too. This is kind of beyond
coming
me,
here.
but there's something about there's like only one or two USDA facilities, like to inspect. Katie would know better than I would. But there's like it's landed on like.
Oh,
I don't care what anyone says, so.
Councilman
you
Gary
forget
Paul
beef
shows
trough.
up at all the conservation
Everybody, I
meetings.
think the only one
So
that
he
I
sets the
know,
thing up for me, and I've
is
watched it a
Terryville.
couple times.
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Mike
Without
Roderick
Katie here, I
does-
still would have been back
all the way
here.
to Terryville
Probably
because he
calling
can't- He
Christina.
doesn't go to, like, if he goes to
can't-
Maurice's.
Yeah,
he
you can't sell it. You
Gallup-
can't sell it.
Gallup
Exactly,
Road.
yeah.
What's that?
Up there in Gallup Road, that dog training facility there.
Yep.
Oh, well.
They now calling themselves a farm.
Oh, they
They
are.
have goats, they got ducks. Goats, ducks, and a third critter. And what they're doing is they're training the dogs to be herding dogs.
Oh,
So they named themselves as a farm. And I think they had some of the goats gave birth and stuff like that, so. Yeah,
wow.
Good one to visit.
Yeah, I might. I'm there all the time.
you were across the street.
I'm across the street. Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah,
Hey,
so-
thank you very much.
I saw you pull in there once when I was driving by.
Oh, did you?
I was thinking of
You should-
driving in. I
you
know I
should have.
should've.
You would have seen quite a project going on. Got a lot of windows back.
What are you doing?
Redoing the house totally. Well, it's all gutted. It's,
Not your house.
no, not that one, another one.
Another one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting you own like all this.
Couple.
Couple of farms, a couple houses.
Keeps me out of trouble.
I think your wife keeps you out of trouble.
Well, yeah, that's probably it too.
You're busy. You're busy enough.
Yeah, that's.
All right, so we have to.
Does this one? Okay, thank you, everybody. No, that's all. Anybody in there? Coming out?